Welcome to Rick D Woodworking. Hey guys, today I have a challenge for my family to hit a lousy 100 subscribers on my channel. So please help me out and let me show my family that I can do just that, okay? If you like what you see today, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, and as I post more and more videos, you'll be notified as well. Thanks so much. Now, today we're going to build this king-size bed. If you like what you see, stick around and I'll show you how I did it. Okay guys, these are the boards that we're going to use for the project. Very nice maple, very clean. We're going to get started by ripping these down and gluing them up. So let's do it. Here we go. Okay, so here I'm rough cutting the boards for the posts and the supports underneath the bed. I need 48.5 inches for the two large headboards, and I'm cutting those at 52 inches. And then I need two posts for the bottom at 21.5 inches, and I'm cutting those at 25 inches, just rough cut for now again. And then the two supports underneath the bed are going to be at 11 inches, so I'm cutting those at around 15 inches. And again, these are just rough cut for now. We're going to glue these boards up together, and then we can trim them up later on the circular saw. Okay, so now I started gluing up those boards, and again, you can see I have 3 boards per glue up. They're all 3/4 of an inch thick, and I need them to be 2¼ inches altogether for those posts. So I'm gluing up 3 boards wide. I used a paintbrush here. Worked out really well. Actually, this first batch I put a little bit too much glue on, so I had a little bit too much squeeze out once I started clamping these up. But you can see here I'm really using a paintbrush to get the ends of those boards glued up. I want to make sure that I get complete coverage here. So I did try a different technique when I was gluing up these boards. Did not work out too well. Right here you could see I tried to clamp the boards widthwise so they were even, but that didn't end up working out too good. So I just did the best I could, pushed down on the boards here. You can see I'm using my thumb and just clamp them together. I'm going to rip these on my circular saw, so it didn't really matter to me. I'm going to trim those ends up. You can see here I am trying to wipe up some of that glue from the squeeze out. And then I just set these aside and went to the next batch. Okay, so I'm laying out the 4 boards for the headboard, and not sure how good you could see this, but tried to get the grain to match as close as I can. I think I did a pretty good job with these 2 boards here. You could see a pretty nice grain match here. Okay guys, so I marked up my board. I made a triangle. I'm not sure if you could see it. I just drew it in pencil here. Made a triangle on my board so I know how my boards go together. I also labeled my boards 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the sides. Okay, and I marked all my boards for the biscuit joiner. Okay, so you could see my markings here. All right. So here I am setting up for my biscuit joiner. My shop's got pretty good light, but I am blind as a bat, so I can't see that little line that I made and the biscuit joiner line. So I'm using a flashlight here just to get that lined up perfectly, as you could see. I went ahead and I'm showing you this one board that I'm using my biscuit joiner on, but I went ahead and did all 4 boards the same way. The 2 center boards had biscuit slots on either side of the board. Okay, and the top board and the bottom board obviously only had biscuits on one side of the board. Okay, and you could see again I'm using my flashlight here just to line up that that line. I wanted to get it as even as I can here, and I was good to go. So I didn't bore you by showing you all of the boards here. Okay guys, I cut all my biscuits and all the boards, and now we're going to go ahead and glue these boards up. I've asked my wife to come down and give me a hand with that because it's going to be a two-man project. Okay, here we go. Alright guys, so here's the glue up, and got my wife on the left hand side here. She's helping me out. These are 8-foot boards. I don't need all 8 feet. I only need just under 7 feet, but I'm gluing up all 8 feet, and I'm going to trim them at the end here. Gluing these up, spreading them with my finger, making sure I have glue on either side of the biscuits. The second board was not that big of a deal to get up on top of the first board there. Third board was a little bit more challenging, but you can see we did a pretty good job. This fourth board was definitely a little bit of a challenge. You'll see we had a little bit of a problem lining it up right here, but as soon as the biscuits went in the slots, you'll see that happen here soon, and then it was much better. Lined up really well. Getting some of that glue off. And we went ahead and flipped over the board, and we did wipe the other side as well. And then we laid it down flat, and I added some additional clamps. This board here, these are our glue ups for the headboard. These are the posts for the headboard. We're going to rip these on the table saw. We should be able to get 2 out of this, no problem at all. These are 5.5 inches wide, and all we need is 2 1/4, and this is already 2 1/4 thick. So we'll get rid of the rough edge here. We'll trim up both sides, and then we'll cut these to 2 1/4 inches wide. Over here, these are the boards for the base of the bed, the foot of the bed. These are the posts for the foot of the bed, and then these are going to be the posts for under the bed, just to give it some additional support. And you can see I don't have a very big shop here, so let me take you in this other room. This is where I have the glue up from yesterday for the headboard. Here it is right here. I just have it laying flat down right now on the carpet. Okay, but it came out really nice. It's very straight, very flat, very flush with each other. Just a little sanding I think is going to need to be done, and we're going to be good to go. Okay, so now let's go ahead and go back to the shop and cut up these. I'm going to start with this first, the supports underneath the bed. I'm going to start with these first, and we'll get them cut up on my table saw. Alright, here we go. Okay, so now I'm ripping the rough edge off of each one of these boards, and yes, I had that micro jig out because I didn't want to use didn't want to get too close to it. It was really hard to push these through because of the maple. Maple's hard, plus it was 2 1/4 inches thick. My saw was doing really well. It was a brand new blade. Look at that. Look at that strip that just came right off there. That's the rough edge. Came out really nice. Now I'm setting the saw at 2 1/4 inches, and I'm going to rip every one of those pieces. The bottom supports, the 2 bottom pieces for the bottom of the bed, and the 2 headboard pieces as well. And you'll see here that I am, again, going really slow. I have the guard on the DeWalt table saw. I'm able to push it through even with the guard on. You can see it probably lifting here a little bit right there. It was really tough to push those through. I was sweating by the time I was done with these. I want to show you here right towards the end, after I cut this board, Let me show you just how nice and square those came out. Here it comes. Look at that. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Guys, these came out really nice, excellent, square from my table saw. We're going to go ahead and cut these to length, but not quite yet. First, we're going to take this PVC and we're going to cut this on the table saw. I'll show you why in just a second. Okay, we got our strips cut out of our PVC. We're going to use these strips to make the profile on the top of the headboard. But we're not going to do that quite yet. First, we're going to go ahead and cut these posts to length. So let's do that now. Okay guys, I'm going to set up a stop block on my sled. And the great thing about this sled is you can just set your tape measure right here at the cut mark, and we can get 21 3/4 perfectly. I've set up a nice little stop there, and we're going to go ahead and cut these lengths right now.
Okay, first of all, I know that some of you are probably thinking, why does this guy have a gallon of glue on the side of his sled? And that's just simply because of balance. I haven't had a chance to make a workbench that's going to incorporate this table saw yet, but I'm going to work on that. You can see here I'm cutting all of my posts now, and you can see I was just getting one side flush and then turning it over to my stop block. Here I'm lining up the line to the little gap that's there. I can just barely see it, but this helped me with my 48.5-inch pieces.
Guys, I made this sled so I can cut the bevels on these posts. Let me see if I can get the camera a little bit closer so you can see this. So this is 5 inches from top to bottom of the bevel here. And what I did was I marked the 5-inch mark, and then I marked this in at 3/8 of an inch to give myself that 1.5 inches that I'm looking for the leg post. Okay, once I did that, I was able to line up, I don't know if you could see that good or not, but I was able to line up my mark with the edge of the sled, and I was able to line up this mark with the edge of the sled here, and that'll give me my bevel that I'm looking for. I cut 2 boards that had straight edges, so I'm using this straight edge against the post, and this straight side will ride against the table saw. Okay, I do have some clamps that I got off of Amazon that I'm going to mount here, but I do need to get this a little bit higher or these won't quite work. So I'm going to work on that next.
So here I'm just trying to build this up. I put 3 pieces of plywood on top of each other just to get that about just under 2¼ inch thick. So this way here, when I mount those clamps on top of this plywood, I'll be able to clamp down that 2¼ inch post. Just trying to sand everything down smooth here, so when I run it through the table saw, it doesn't bind up anywhere. I found these on Amazon. This is only my second video, so I'm not sure how to post links yet to YouTube, but I will look at that and see if I can. And if it's not that hard, then I'll post a link to these as well. You can see here I'm pushing pretty hard. Had to use 2 hands, so it is a really nice tight fit. Okay, so now we're cutting the 5-inch strips off of just one side of the small footboard posts, as you can see here. I did have a helper. I was passing the jig all the way through. Here are the posts for the headboards. These are just the 5-inch pieces still. The headboard post received 5-inch tapers on both sides. And then you can see here, now we're running just this 2-inch strips for the baseboard posts. And now it's time to cut the headboard length. So here you can see I'm just setting up a straight edge and using my circular saw to cut that straight edge. I put some blue tape down just to make sure that I don't get any tear out.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this parchment paper and I'm going to draw this line and then I'm going to cut it out and then flip it over to the other side and see if that works. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so that worked out just fine. I was able to flip it over, draw the line, and now you can see here I'm just using my jigsaw. I'm leaving a little bit of an edge there so I can sand or scrape down to the line. This was not very easy to do, but let's speed up this process and show you the finished product here. There you go, there's one piece. I cut half and then I went back and did the other half. Again, not very easy to do with a jigsaw, but wasn't too bad.
Okay guys, we got the profile cut out. I think it came out really good, but I'm going to tell you, that was not easy to do with a jigsaw.
So here I'm using a card scraper and I'm just going along the edge where the glue was, trying to clean up some of that glue and any other marks that might be on there or any imperfections. So I did this throughout the entire headboard, front and back. So let's speed up this process and show you really quick how it went. Okay, so now I used my orbital sander and just went across both sides, get everything nice and smooth all the way down to 220 grit. I apologize for not showing this cutout here on this round area. I used a bucket just to draw the line and I cut that with my jigsaw. Here you can see I'm using my router to just give it a round over edge on both sides of the headboard. Okay, now off to card scraping the posts, and I'm just trying to get some of the glue and marks from the table saw off. Okay, now finally off to cutting the sideboards and the footboard and the center support as well. Just getting these all cut and square on the table saw. Okay, and once that was done, now it's just time to give this all a round over just on the top edge. I left the bottom of the side rails and footboard square. Now to attach the footboard rail with some glue and some pocket hole screws. And here we go.
Okay, got the base of the bed all done, and so now we're going to move on to assembling the headboard. Let's do that now.
And as you can see here, I have the bottom rail already done there on the left hand side, And now the top of the headboard is what I'm gluing on now. A little glue and some pocket screws. Here we go. Now it's time to cut 1¼ inch strips, 3 of them, and glue them together for the center supports. This is where the slats are going to ride over. These are just the end pieces. You'll see here in just a second.
So we're going to go ahead and glue these two boards together. And I cut them on the table saw. They're extremely flush. So I'm just going to clamp them to the edge of this workbench, and that'll keep them nice and flush. I'm going to go ahead and glue them both together, but then we're going to cut them to 6 inches long. We only need 2 at 6 inches. This is probably about 16 inches, so we won't need all of this. Okay? And this is going to be for the center support where the slats are going to ride over. And I'll show you in my SketchUp version what that looks like. Yep. The thin water ones. Yep. So this is the glue up that we did last night, and it looks really good. I did have to card scrape some of the glue off, not a big deal. Sanded it all down, it's all nice and smooth. And now I'm going to go ahead and cut this 6 inches. I need 2 of them at 6 inches, 1 for each side of the center support. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this square on my table saw right now.
So I cut 3 of these pieces at 6 inches long, and it was a good thing I did because I screwed up later on and needed that extra piece. You should always try to do that.
Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and cut the strips that'll go on the side rails to hold the slats down. So let's go ahead and cut those now. First I'm going to cut this board to length, and then we'll rip them on the table saw. Here we go.
Again, these are just for the side rail supports where the slats are going to get screwed into. You'll see here in just a second.
Okay, I cut the 1 inch supports for the slats for both side rails, and now I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill these to accept the screws so they don't snap. It is only 1 inch material, so it's not very thick and I don't want it to crack. Okay, let's go ahead and pre-drill those now. So these rail supports are just over 6 feet long, and I'm thinking I'm going to use our other supports. I know these are 6 inches. I'm going to use these as a marking guide, and I'm going to mark these boards every 6 inches. I think the might be a little bit overkill, but I don't want it to go anywhere, so I think I'm just going to stick with that. Let's do it. So I made this template and I marked the one that I want to use, which is right here, so I know the depth of the recess for the screw, and I'm going to use this as my guide. Okay, here we go. Okay, so my support for the slats the top of this needs to be 2 inches from the bottom of the side rail. So because I know this is 3/4 inch thick material, I'm going to set my square at 1.25 inches and draw a line on the bottom. Then I'm going to match the line to the bottom of the support and screw it into the sideboard. Let's get going. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a quick hand sanding just to get any rough edges and this sharp edge off. Let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, let me show you what I did here. So, I'm not sure if you could see this or not, but I made a little mark here at the 1 inch line, just 1 inch from the bottom up, and I'm just going to make sure I place all these brackets 1 inch up from the bottom. I marked my holes here, and then what I did was I took a scrap board 2¼ inches wide to simulate the posts, and I just temporarily put the bracket on my simulation post. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this on here as if I were to put the rail on the post. Okay, and you can see where it sits. It's perfect right now, and this is flush against the rail. The post is flush against the rail. The bracket looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and drill out these holes next. Nice and tight. Very nice tight fit. Okay, there you go. So I bought these maple Kreg plugs, and I think I'm going to go ahead and just fill these holes, sand them down, and then stain over it. I don't think it'll look so bad. This is going to be on the inside anyway. I don't have to. I could leave them open, but I think I'm going to go ahead and fill these with these maple plugs. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, so this is the bottom rail, and I put the Kreg plugs in. And now what I'm going to do is, this is the center of the rail, and this is the inside, obviously, because we've got our pocket hole joinery here, so we know this is the inside. And I'm going to go ahead and put this block support on for the center support. And not sure if you could see this or not, but I'm going to zoom in here. You can see I made a little mark here right in the center line. I just clamped this on. So now what I'm going to do is just put this camera back here for you. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my square. I'm just going to make a mark. I'm going to make 2 marks, one on each side. Distance doesn't really matter. And now I'm going to use these dowels. I'm going to go ahead and drill these dowels out and glue this on here. Okay, here we go. Okay, I got it all set up. I marked my lines and I'm right in the center here. I just got to make sure that when I drill this down that I don't go any further than my tape, or I'll come out the other side and that's not going to make me happy. So here we go. These dowels are a little long, so I'm going to go ahead and cut them off. Okay, got my holes drilled. They look like they line up okay. Well, I guess we'll find out in a second. I should probably put some glue in here. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and use this flush cut saw and going to flush cut these off, the pocket hole plugs. So let's go ahead and do that now.
This card scraper really works well, especially in tight little corners like this. I was able to card scrape those flat, and little sanding, and she was good to go.
Okay guys, let me show you how I did this. So I made a mark with my square. Let me just get that. Made a mark with my square to get the line straight across, so I know where the bottom of this support is. And then I made myself a little template. Let me show you. So I made this little template here. That's the correct size where this bracket needs to lay on top of. This spacing needs to be there in order for the side rails to line up with the bottom and top frames here. Okay, so I just made this little template, as you can see. So let me show you how I did that. We'll do that over here on this one right now. So I already drew my line. Okay, And now I'm going to put my template. I'm just going to use a clamp and just clamp that down. And I'm going to line up my bracket here, screw it down, and ready to go. Alright, let's go ahead and do it.
Okay, and it's finally time to cut the slat lengths. So that's what I'm doing here, making my marks and cutting them on the chop saw. Once that was done, I brought them over to the router and gave them a round over on all 4 edges. This was probably a little bit overkill. I probably didn't need to do that, but it was just a lot nicer to be able to not have to handle that sharp edge and not have to worry about putting stuff underneath the bed and maybe hitting the slats and getting cut, and also the mattress on top, sitting on top of the slats, just softens that edge a bit.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use this tack paper, as you can see here, and it is very tacky. So wear gloves, it'll be a lot easier, okay? But I'm going to go ahead and wipe all the dust down off of all of these pieces that I have before I stain. Okay, you want to make sure you do that because otherwise that dust, those dust particles will be in your stain, and it's going to be hard to get that out of there. So you're going to want to make sure you run tack paper or tack cloth throughout all of these pieces. While I have the camera going, let me just show you what we have here. Okay, so I've got the headboard here, as you can see. These are my pieces for the supports under the center support legs. And then over here I've got that's the center support down the center of the bed, and I got my 2 side rails and my slats here all cut and sanded. And then over here I've got my footboard. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use tack paper on all of those pieces right now, and then we'll get staining. Let's get going. Okay guys, so as you can see, I got this side all stained, and I'm going to tell you that was a lot of work. Took me probably about 3 hours to get it all done, and I still have to flip these over and do the other side. I did decide to do the slats as well. I don't know why. I didn't have to do that, but I think they actually look kind of cool. And here's the side rails and the bottom supports. And again, it looks really, really nice. So, all right, flip them over, do the other side. Here we go. Okay guys, got everything stained as you can see here. This is the headboard, footboard, rails and supports, and over here got my slats. And yes, I even stained those. Didn't have to, a little overkill, but hey, you know. So now what I'm going to do is polyurethane, and I want to show you this here. This is what I'm using for a polyurethane. But I am mixing it with mineral spirits to a 60% polyurethane and 40% mineral spirit, so I can wipe it on. I'm just going to use a cloth here, and I'm just going to do a little wipe on here, and probably use like 1000 grit sandpaper in between coats, and start putting some coats on. Here we go. So I'm using these 3M ultra fine hand sanding pads in between coats. So you can see I already have one coat of polyurethane on here. I'm going to go ahead and hand sand, just lightly hand sand, just to make everything smooth, and then we'll go ahead and wipe it down with tack cloth and polyurethane another coat on. Okay, here we go. Okay guys, we're going to use tack cloth now. Now that we sanded the surface, we want to make sure that any dust comes off before we polyurethane another coat. Here we go. Not sure if you could see all this dust. Yikes. Okay, if you remember, these are the bottom supports underneath the bed, and I'm getting ready to do the assembly now. And I want to go ahead and cut these right at 11 inches. So I've made my mark, and we're going to go ahead and cut these right at 11 inches now. I kept them long because I wanted to make sure that the measurements were correct, and according to my drawing and my measurements, they're exactly 11 inches. So let's go ahead and cut these now. I have a mess going on right now in my workbench, but okay, I got these to 11 inches, and I have a pocket hole jig here. I'm going to drill 2 pocket holes on either side of this, and I'm going to attach it to that center support. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and I already built the frame. I just set it up and it's looking really good. Here's my center support. I literally have maybe a 1/16 of an inch in between the headboard and the footboard, so really came out perfect. I'm going to go ahead and flip this over now onto the floor, and we're going to attach our support blocks to the bottom here, like so. Alright, let's get started. Here we go. Okay, this board is 82 inches long. If you divide that by 3, it comes out to like 27.33. I just set these at 27 inches in from the end. I think that'll be just good enough. And they're centered and ready to go, so I'm going to go ahead and get these screwed to that board now. Here we go. So I polyurethaned everything here, and this is a bit slippery, so I'm using a clamp to hold this in place. I'm going to use a countersink bit, and I'm going to go ahead and countersink 3 screws into our support block. Here we go. Smoking. Okay guys, so now it's time to put the slats in, and we need to countersink these into the side rails. So we're going to go ahead and do that, but before we do that, I measured these out to see what my spacing looks like. It looks like I'm going to have 6 inches on this first slat and about 6 inches on this last slat if I put a 5-inch space in between each one of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut 2 scrap boards 5 inches long, and we're going to set those up at the in between each slot so we could just space these evenly all the way across. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that now. I set up 2 clamps, one on each side, so that I can make sure that that first slat stays at 6 inches. And now I'm going to go ahead and countersink drill this slat into the sideboard. Okay, here we go. It's going to be a little bit hard for me to record this part, but I got the first slat in. Went really well, no problems at all. I even have a clamp there in the middle just to make sure it stayed at 6-inch mark. So I went ahead and cut these boards, 3 of them, at 5 inches. And now what I'm going to do is we're just going to place these boards here, butt the next slat up, and I've got 3 of them because I'm going to go 1 here on this side board, 1 in the middle, and then 1 all the way at the end there. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and drill and screw all of these in. So I'm going to do 1 by 1. A little hard for me to record this at the same time because I'm trying to vacuum as I go now that I'm set up in the bedroom. Okay, so I think you get the point. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Well, there you go guys, there you have it, all complete. This bed is completely solid, all solid maple, and it looks really good. I'm so happy about the way it came out. I'll tell you, probably gonna end up being about an hour video, but this took me about 1.5 months, 2 months to build completely, just to give you a solid idea of how long something like this really takes. But all in all, I think it looks absolutely amazing. So hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell, and you'll get notified the next time I put up a video. So thanks again, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.